biggest thing in filmmaking, videography, photography, and it may be not what a lot of people want to hear, I guess, is but you need to be passionate. Like you really do need to enjoy meeting people, interacting with new people, seeing new things. Whatever it is that you want to do, be passionate about it, and that can carry you a long way.
Hi, and welcome to the Your Story Studios podcast, a podcast where we talk about all things content creation. And today on the show, I'm joined by a man who needs absolutely no introduction. But for people who may not know who you are you and what are you doing here?
So I'm Jock Turner. I am a videographer and photographer working in the Melbourne sort of region. I work for the video production, and I'm here today to talk about videography, video production, sort of from the videographer's perspective. Like I'm not running the business, I'm working under Grant. So I thought I could provide a bit of value in that sort of field.
Great. And Grant is the owner of Lift Video Production for people that do not know.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jock, how did you get into video production?
Yes, that's a long journey. I'll try and summarize as much as possible, but I started acting when I was about 9 years old in 2006. Might make some people feel a bit old, me saying that. And sort of continued doing, so I was doing screen acting, I should say, and appeared on a few sort of productions throughout that. I, did extra work in Underbelly and some TVCs, and first time I shaved was on TV, so there's that. Did an episode of Prank Patrol, some independent films, all that sort of stuff that you sort of do as a child actor, all the way up until I was about 17, and I sort of came to realize that I preferred being behind the camera. I really enjoy storytelling. It's kind of my focus. I absolutely adore it, and particularly in the film sort of sector. But I think I sort of realized that I don't really want to be the one acting. I want to be the one writing and directing and telling those stories. So I sort of dropped all my acting classes, picked up media in high school for year 11 and 12, which I hadn't done any of the previous classes of that for. Did all that, went on to study at Swinburne University in Hawthorn. Started there in a diploma because I had a sort of a way I could progress from a diploma to advanced diploma to the bachelor for its third year. So you don't lose any years, but you can get to the bachelor. Reason why I did that is because the bachelor at Swinburne at the time, I don't know what it's like now, required a 92 plus ATAR, which was insane. I was not going to get that. So
were you a good student?
I was a good student, yeah. I was decent enough. Just not a 90 plus level student, especially with like what I was focusing on. I wasn't really into sort of the heavy maths and sciences. I did keep up my maths and I did keep up a science up until year 11, I think. And then year 12, I was like, oh, I want to be a filmmaker. I'm not going to do physics anymore. As a result, I went through the diploma, advanced diploma, joined a bachelor. And at that time I did it, I was required to do an honours. It was a mandatory thing. So fourth year wasn't necessarily my choice, and I probably wouldn't. I would do it again in terms of because I got to make a good film out of those 2 extra year, but that doesn't necessarily help me in my work, if that makes sense. It was more of a luxury that I could take. And
so overall, would you recommend people go the university path, or is the University of YouTube these days probably a wiser option?
I think there's a lot of value in joining or doing a uni of some sort. I think you'll probably get your most value out of doing up to an advanced diploma. Don't know if a bachelor or an honours is necessarily the most useful, but definitely getting yourself in and around and involved with other like-minded creatives, spending dedicated time with them, not only builds like friendships and potentially partnerships, which I do still utilize now, but you also it's a kind of a grounding and sort of legitimizes a bit of what you're doing, gets you access to equipment that you otherwise may not have access to. Because of uni, I've shot on Reds and Aries and used expensive glass and got experience with bigger lights that I don't necessarily get to use very often, and a lot of older lights as well, the old tungsten, heavy wattage lights.
Yeah, you touch them and then you burn your fingerprints
Which
off.
I have done. And blown a circuit here or there. We didn't check our circuits correctly at a house before filming. So there is a lot of it. And I would say if you're interested in filmmaking, you don't necessarily need to do a degree, but it did help me. And particularly if you're interested in the creative narrative world. If you're kind of doing videography, sort of corporate work, probably less important. YouTube and just generally meeting people and stuff goes a really long way to doing that.
So the people that you met at university, you mentioned you're around like-minded people. Did you find that they had the same drive as you?
A lot of them did, yeah. Yeah, not all of them did. And that's okay. You know, a lot of people still working out what they want to do. A lot of them are around the same age. Obviously, you do get a few
mature age students.
Yep. Yeah. But a lot of them are sort of in a similar spot where they're still trying to work out where they want to go in the world, but they are driven by either storytelling or filmmaking or whatever part of filmmaking they enjoy. At the time, so I should say, I wasn't a camera guy throughout most of uni. I didn't know anything about cameras for my first 2 years, all the way up to the end of advanced diploma. I knew that the aperture makes it look blurrier and
gives you more light.
Yeah. And that we should keep ISO as low as possible. But beyond that, I was like, I don't know. I relied on my DP because I was a writer-director. I sort of just let my DPs handle the vision and how they want to do it. And they would inform me. I'd sort of tell them, this is what I kind of want it to look like. Here's some reference images. Here's some sort of ideas I have. Maybe sometimes I might inform like focal lengths that I thought from a bit of basic research that would sort of be appropriate for the shot. And they would tell me if I was right or wrong or how stupid I was for thinking that. So, but going through uni, one of the other great things we have is lectures. Not really that great, but you do get lectures with people from the industry. And sort of the unfortunate sounding message was that narrative filmmaking in Australia is really tough. It's really hard out there. There's not much money. Australia's economy is considerably smaller than a lot of the other developed countries around the world. And then filmmaking is still just as expensive. So getting a film off the ground and actually getting it produced, getting it funded is really difficult. And then even harder is making a return on that investment, which I think they said at the time it was like 90% of Australian productions don't make a return on investment, which
sounds about right.
Pretty terrible, really. And I sort of stopped and went, okay, well, I want to keep using cameras, still want to be around filmmaking. What can I do? And so I sort of realized that I needed to pivot probably into doing a bit of corporate work. Throughout uni, it's like a dirty word. Like corporate, it's like, oh, you can't do that. Yeah, you're a creative filmmaker. You don't
sell out.
Yeah, I had to sell out to corporate filmmaking. But that's where sort of the more stable work is. So ended up buying a GH5, Lumix GH5, and sort of teaching myself through YouTube filmmaking, sort of the more like actually using a camera and then using my backing as well. I did have cinematography classes and all that sort of stuff to learn how to use my camera. And then, just started picking up a bit of freelance work throughout my last 2 years of uni.
How did you do that? Did people just know that Jock was the video guy and, you can come film my wedding or you can film my birthday party?
I just saw myself as a kid from Prank Patrol. Actually mostly through referrals. So my friend Rory, who's a cinematographer, and he recommended me to some clients that he had reached out to him. And I think that there wasn't a good fit for him. So he's like, oh, Jockey's upcoming, obviously can charge considerably less than probably what the going rate. And so my first few jobs were very, very, very cheap. I think I was like $100 for a day, including the editing. Well, like $150.
Well, so I don't know what the free.
Yes, exactly. So I don't know what the hourly rate of that is, but really not
slave labor.
Yeah. But we all had to do that, right?
Yeah. And
then from there, you kind of just sort of snowball your recommendations and
if you do good work,
which hopefully I was doing. So I think the first job I did was an event for a company. I forget the name of them now. They would go to schools and teach kids about responsible rubbish behavior. So, recycling and general rubbish. And I was showing, they're doing the 4 bins that are pretty common now. And that was kind of the first thing I did, which was very dry, but it was interesting. And then I ended up doing a dance school video in Sunbury for like a dance class sort of thing. So it was sort of, we did a full day where we sort of blocked out different scenes and when it was a bit more complicated, had to borrow one of my friend's glide cams. Because at this point, I just realized I didn't have my GH5 yet. I was saving up for it. I had my dad's Canon 550D.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which was
I had one of those.
Pretty it's a pretty solid camera for a beginner.
Yep.
And the footage, even if I look back now, looks all right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, got through it. Had to learn how to use a little glide cam for the day and sort of made that work. And finished up university in time for COVID, which was fantastic. So I graduated in 2019, started looking for work sort of end of 2019, beginning into 2020.
Yeah, ouch.
So there was about 2 years there where I didn't get much work at all. Like 2020, I don't think I did a single freelance job. I sort of was kind of pivoting to job searching anyway, so I wasn't necessarily looking for the work, and I had another job at the time for money. And then 2021, I started picking up a few more jobs, but I had to pick up actual work doing a forklift driving for a year full time, which was interesting. It's good fun. My other job was duty managing at a supermarket. So I had to do a lot of like thinking, a lot of considering and planning, and same sort of like directing on this film set. Whereas sort of working as a forklift driver left a lot of brain space for me to think.
And dream.
Yes. And that's where I actually found time to sort of properly create my freelance name, which is Jock Visuals, and sort of created my website and got a bit more work through there until finally landed the job with Grant at Lift Video Production. So,
and how did you find that job?
Funnily enough, talking about uni friends, my friend Rory, who helped me the first time, it's kind of a full circle, I'm just realizing now. He knew Grant because he owns a C200. And I think Grant and Rory bought C200 around about the same time, and they were involved online in like the sort of Melbourne C200 scene. And so he had seen that Grant had a application up. Well, me and Rory were shooting a sort of a small doco in Castlemaine at the time. And he's like, oh, like that job's gone up. You should apply for it and I can put in a good word for you. So
it's who you know.
It is who you know, yeah. So like literally, I think we filmed that day, the first half of that doco, and then I went home and I shot, because Grant required a little video application. So I shot my application and sent it in. And then the very next day, Grant came back. I actually didn't know for a while if Rory had put in a good word, but I did learn later that he sort of like, hey, have a look at Jock's application. And apparently I was only one of 5 who did send in the video application. And according to Grant, I was the best, but who knows?
Yeah. So for people that may not know, we've had Grant on the podcast before, and he mentioned about hiring you and the process as well. And he mentioned that to cull down and try to make it easier to figure out who the best prospects were was to get the videographer that's applying to have the videography job to take a video of themselves. And I think he might have said maybe 10 people actually did it. And then great, 10 people did it out of maybe like 200 applicants.
Like that,
and there's your shortlist right there. So yeah, good hiring tip if you're a video producer looking for a videographer. Just get them to do one extra thing other than sending through a copy and paste cover letter or whatever. And yeah, you'll cut down the applicants very quickly.
He did say that like he didn't require like a lot of effort to be put into the video.
Just some effort,
yeah, just
please.
some effort. Like, yeah, he was sort of aware that some people may not have a camera. You know, iPhone was fine, but I mean, I set up my S5 with my lights and everything, and I did a bit of editing. I cut parts of my video, like other work, into it to sort of show examples of what I'd done. So I sort of went all out with it.
Yeah. Well.
And it was like, to me, it was just a bit of fun, right? Like that at the end of the day, for me, it doesn't really matter what work I'm doing. I could be applying for work for a job. I could be shooting some of the most bare bones sort of work, but I get a lot of enjoyment out of just making a nice image, and even more so if it can be telling a story at the same time. So that always sort of drives what I want to do. And even then, so a job application was a bit of fun, even if I didn't get the job, which I did in the end, which was great. But
yeah. So let's talk about today. Today you are a videographer, or the head videographer. Lead videographer at Lift Video Production. Tell me about that.
So as you just said, I'm the lead videographer at Lift Video Production. I say lead, we have one other videographer employee.
Still counts.
Patty, so yeah, it counts. My role sort of consists of, I do most of the large shooting and I sort of handle the more complicated ones. And then when I'm not on a shoot, say if Patty's taking it or if we've got multiple shoots that day, which happens often enough, I might give Patty a few tips, or like just I can mostly leave him to just do it himself now, which is great. But I might sort of just say, like, hey, you know, lighting here or something like that, use this camera, these sort of settings and whatnot. And then that also goes into editing. I'm also the lead editor, I guess. I sort of handle the whole back end in that sense. So I do all the editing, I do all the backing up and the archiving and all that side of
All the
it.
important stuff.
All the important stuff, yes, which is a never-ending battle. But and that means that sometimes I'm out on set by myself. Sometimes clients only have the budget for a single person to be out there, which is fine. So I handle all the interviewing, setting up the cameras, handling the cameras, but also running the interview, liaising with the client on the day. I don't do a lot of the pre-production side of stuff. That's sort of left to Grant and our production coordinator, Giselle. So they sort of do all the kickoff calls and all that sort of stuff. And they sort of prepare a brief for me and where I'm going to be and what I'm going to be shooting. And I'll look over that before I go and get a bit of an idea of the equipment I might need.
That's important.
Very important, yes, because you don't want to get caught out. I'm always very nervous of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then because we shoot often enough, I can't spend much time in pre-production sort of planning and really coming up with a visual idea and almost storyboarding it in a sense. A lot of the time it is I rock up, have a bit of a brief idea of what I'm doing, and then I just got to rely on my expertise to sort of work out as I'm going, as I'm speaking to clients, what we're actually doing today, what this is actually about.
There's a lot of quick thinking.
A lot of quick thinking and how I can sort of show that visually, which is a fun challenge. Sometimes it's a little scary. You sort of get there and you go, I have no idea what this is. I don't know how this is going to come together in the edit yet. But as you sort of do that more, you kind of get a little better at sort of, you can already almost start editing the video in your head as you're shooting it. You might be listening to interviews and go, great, cool. So I'm going to make sure I get footage of that. Or like that question I might need to re-ask to get the soundbite that I know exists in there naturally. We don't try and direct speeches too much, but you might want them to relay that in a different way that will just cut down a little nicer into a video, those sort of things. And then,
do you have any tips with that kind of stuff?
I start every interview. I sort of kind of go, well, there's only a few ground rules for this interview. One, it's not live. I sort of let people know like, hey, it's not live. You don't have to get it right 100% of the time in one take. We can go back, we can go forward, we can start a sentence halfway through, we can do everything because I can edit that and I can cut around it and we can make it sound good. So I hope that sort of alleviates a bit of the nerves. Even I'm a bit nervous sitting in front of this right now.
It's a different experience, isn't it?
Yes. And I hope that sort of alleviates a bit of that pressure. And then the other one is to start the question, because we don't have our voices in the video. We don't. It's not like a reporter style thing. To start the question, so the answer with the question in it. So, if I was to ask you, how was your day? You'd say, my day has been really good. And that provides the context to the question and the answer in the same one. Sometimes you do have to remind people throughout an interview that that's what we need to do, and that's okay. My other tip would be let an answer run its full course. Don't ask a question. They sort of, started off wrong, cut them off and go, no, I need you to say it like this, because sometimes they will actually reround back to the question in that answer and you can use that. Or what they end up saying is the more natural way they're going to say it and you get that. And then you go, oh, can I just get you to start that sentence again saying this? So you sort of can make sure you get the real natural response, the appropriate response without them getting in their head or getting fuzzled or just getting really nervous about it, feeling like they're stuffing up a lot or anything like that. And you just sort of remind them at the end of it, hey, sorry, can we just back up? So that's sort of our other thing is we don't send the clients, or sometimes we do, but we send the clients the questions beforehand. We generally just give them a bit of an idea of what we're going to be asking. And that's because we don't want people to script their answers. They script the answers and then suddenly they get in their head when they're answering it going, oh, I know I had to say something here, but I can't remember what it is. And they end up going in this circle of just forgetting and trying to remember. So we find it easier. We just sort of go, no, we just wanted your actual response. And then we can workshop it from there within the interview to get what the video needs.
Great. And just for context for our audience, what kind of videos are you typically shooting?
We film a lot in the logistics, transport space, a little bit in healthcare, and of course, being a production company, also a broad spectrum of random different areas as well. But we're typically shooting sort of online social media / website videos for marketing and for internal communications. So a lot of these really big corporate companies have huge internal comms budgets that go towards communicating to their employees what the business has been doing. And then sometimes that also gets published externally as well. And so there's a lot of interviewing, a lot of B-roll, a lot of interstate travel to get to different places, especially for the logistics sector, because a lot of logistics happens in Sydney and Queensland. And then if you go into like the mining stuff and whatnot, you're in WA and Perth and all that.
Do you enjoy the travel?
I do, yeah, within reason. It's always a bit of fun getting out and going to see cool places, parts of the country you've maybe never been to. I mean, before working here, my travel has been pretty limited. I've sort of really only been up the east coast of Australia. I've actually never been overseas, still haven't been overseas, which is sad, but
Do you have a passport?
I do have a passport. I was meant to go to New Zealand, which is not really overseas, but I was meant to go to New Zealand in 2020. Yeah. Literally the week that I was meant to be away was where the lockdowns began. So, oh well. But now, yeah, I've been to Perth. I've been to WA. I've been all over bits of Brisbane, Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Tasmania, South Australia. So actually, I think I've been to every state through Lyft now, which has been really cool. It's fun. It's a little stressful. You kind of have a gear budget in the sense of weight at that point. So you have to be very selective with what you're shooting and how you're shooting it. And sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge. When you're traveling a lot, it gets pretty tiring. There's it's been a pattern that somewhere between September and November, we, for some reason, always have a lot of travel shoots. And there'll be like weeks where I've been in hotels sort of sporadically throughout those weeks, and you sort of get tired of the hotels and just like, oh man, I just want to go home. Yeah. But I mean, it's kind of like it's complaining about a really good situation, I guess. You know, like I could be stuck editing in the office all day, which I can't do. I need to be out and out on field. So
there is a bit of variety with your role.
Yes, yeah. I think Grant asked me early on when I started Lyft what I would want my editing to shooting percentage to be. And I sort of gave a realistic answer, knowing that editing is going to be the majority of the job, because that's kind of how it works, right? You do one day of shooting and it can be 3-4 days of editing once you've got the client revisions and whatnot involved.
It can be quite the process.
Yes. So I think I said 70-30 or 60-40 would be brilliant. Like, 60% in the office, 40% on the field, or 70-30. And I think we've pretty much landed that. There's a few times where I'm in the office all week, maybe a few weeks in a row. We've just got a lot of post-production we need to get on top of. And then there's times where I'm out 5 days a week or 4 days a week shooting, which it's kind of like on the flip side, like I don't think I could do shooting every day because it's pretty exhausting. It'd be pretty taxing. And any week where I've been out pretty much for the entire week, I'm just knackered by the end of it. So breaking up with in-office work and a little bit of routine can be nice. I'm very much like need to get out. I need the variety. It's kind of the main thing I love about filmmaking in the videography space is I love telling stories, and doing this kind of work means I get to go to different places, meet different people, get a sense of their story and learn all sorts of different stories, and just get a bit of a sense of what's going on around the world, what's going on around Australia, different industries that I otherwise wouldn't have any idea what they are, what they're doing, or how they work. And sometimes, even get into places you're otherwise not able to get into. So it's all very interesting and kind of keeps it fresh. And
you learn new things along the way as well.
A lot of new things.
Did you have any interest in logistics and transport before starting your role at Lyft?
I mean, apart from being a forklift driver, so I was working around trucks right up before, which is kind of ironic. Lyft, I was working as a forklift driver before starting out, which complete tangent, but funny thing was the company I was working for was relatively small. So it was me and my boss, which is what it was like for my first 2 years at Lyft. And that boss's name was Grant as well.
Wow. Keep it simple.
But in terms of like trucks, no, I'm not a car guy. I'm not a truck guy. I am becoming one now, I guess. Like I do know a fair bit about trucks and transport and sort of how that all works now, which does help me in the work that we do. I can sort of help direct questions and provide a bit of context, and also just think when I'm editing going, okay, probably need to show this kind of thing, even if it isn't mentioned, because I know that's what this company does or wants to talk about, and they may have just, forgotten or let it slip that they needed to talk about that. So
Yeah. Talking about editing, do you enjoy editing?
it's a mixed bag.
Some days.
It's funny because editing can be really rewarding. I don't necessarily love the process, but there is a certain fulfillment out of being the person who shot it and edited and final delivery. Like it's kind of like your own little ownership of that production, right? Like it's very fulfilling. And there is like, it was a bit of a learning journey as well when we got Patty in to sort of let go of that sort of shooting and editing side. Like I have to sort of let them take the edit, and I don't try to direct the edit too much. But in terms of like the actual process, it can be very tiring and brain numbing, you know, going through an hour interview, selecting. We do what we call like setting up an interview, which is we watch the whole interview. You always want to watch an entire interview. Sometimes at like 1.5 times speed, you can get away with that.
It's a good hack.
We cut out the gaps where we've asked questions, and then we label on top of the footage what the question that was asked, and then the full answer. And I try not to cut out any even wrong answers. Like there might be a better one here, but I'll leave it in here in my selects so that when I'm going through editing, I kind of go, okay, so this video, yeah, we need introduction. We need some context for who they are. We need to talk about the problem they were facing or whatnot it is. We need to talk about the solution that they found and sort of the end results of that. And then maybe a cute little line at the end for a bit of energy. So I can then look through all the interviews and I can go, okay, these are the questions that probably will contain the answer that I'm looking for this part of the video, and systematically grab it. But sometimes the answer isn't 100% what you're looking for. And sometimes you need to never try to change what a client says, but sometimes you might need to sort of make up a sentence that summarizes what they said. So, and ideally it would be from the same paragraph that they spoke from, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's from a completely different question that works together and tells the correct sentence without them saying like, I hated this, and then you turn it into, I love this. You know, never try and change what people say. At least that's not the way we don't like to do it. But you don't want to just, when you're doing your selects, I would say never discard any part of an answer of an interview, purely because you may actually end up finding that this one later, when you're actually making the video and putting it together, that this answer was actually a better way to say this. Yeah. And then the whole finding the music and all that can be a bit more fun. I guess I can talk about how I actually lay out my edits. Yeah. So typically we do the interview selects, as I just explained first, get them done, get yourself a bit of an idea of what this video will be, especially if you didn't shoot it. You kind of need to go through, watch it, you know, look at your brief and then go and sort of read between the lines of what this is going to be. Then I like to find my music track generally is my next sort of stage. I might down like 3 different sort of similar but maybe slightly different vibes. And
who do you use for that?
We use Artlist mostly, but we also use Premium Beat sometimes. We sort of save Premium Beat for maybe more substantial productions or ones that are maybe more premium. Yes. Ones that maybe are a bit more cinematic in nature than like a explainer video where the music perhaps isn't that important. But I use my music to really inform the pacing of my videos. I do cut my music down quite a bit, and you can get away. I don't know how other people edit their music in their videos, but I literally just find beats that match and can sort of cut that down. If you've got like a riser in the track and you have some strings rising, you can usually use that blended in with a part of a track. As long as you're on the right beat, will generally work.
Do you have a music background?
No. Oh, I played piano.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's more than me.
School and stuff. Yep. But I never did like music production anyway. I'm not very good on the audio side of things. Something I'm trying to improve a bit, although that AI audio stuff has been pretty good.
Yeah, it's only getting better.
It's only getting better. Yeah, it really is. Absolute game changer. But so I'll sort of, we know the length of the video is meant to be. I'll sort of cut the music.
What's an average length?
We're aiming for about 2 minutes or less, typically. If we can get 1.5 for most videos, that seems to be ideal for a kind of an explainer. Something's got to have a bit of information, is going to take a bit of time. You can't cut it down too much. I like a little bit longer, like 1:30 to 2, because you can also leave in a few human elements as well. The shorter you make a video, the more robotic it has to become, essentially. So like you want to keep a bit of that human element in there. You know, maybe they stuff up here or they laugh or something that you want to keep in, but that'd be one of the first things you cut when you're shrinking a video down. So usually about 2 minutes, sometimes 4 for like a bigger video that's maybe not marketing focused, it is generally explaining. Anything beyond that is generally too long now for this kind of content. Sometimes we do have longer things, but it's very sparingly. And then so you can kind of cut your music down to roughly 2 minutes. And then I view my interviews, like the sections, as sort of information as chunks. So generally we open with like a inspirational or fun or like some sort of hooking sort of opening quote.
Get people's attention.
Yeah. We don't really want to start with like, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. We'll typically do that after the first quote if it is one of those videos. Then I'll usually have a gap in the music. It's, 1 or 2 beats or something like that. And then we'll go into the next section information. So whatever that needs to be, whatever that bit of information is, then another gap, let that information set in before you then talk about the next thing, a bit of a gap. And then it's a bit of a sort of a system to that.
There's a formula.
Yeah. It's the way I do it. And it's not the only way you can do it. And maybe I should change it up a bit. But I just find it like if you either basically back to back the audio, it's too much information. And I think you can kind of hard to take it all in. Whereas if you leave a bit of a moment, especially if you can land on like a small emotive line at the end and let the music kick in for a second, it allows people to sort of consider what they just heard before they hear the next part and really help that information get through. Because that's what a lot of storytelling is information telling in an interesting way. So how do you make it interesting? And when it's sort of on the marketing side, how do you get that to sink in and sort of, the viewer can understand what it is we're talking about and sort of appreciate that and hopefully be entertained at the same time.
Yeah, it's a tough ask because, like as you said, 90 seconds to 2 minutes, it's actually not a lot of time if you've got a lot of information to get across. So trying to let the video breathe can be a tough ask sometimes, and that's why people just cram so much into the 90 seconds, 2 minutes, because they don't want to leave anything out. It's difficult. And also with YouTube videos as well, I've found that you need to think a lot about retention. So if you're got someone talking to camera and they're just talking and there's no B-roll, there's no changing of scenery, there's none of that stuff, people then click off. Or if you leave too much of a gap between valuable information and then the next thing, people can then click off. But I'm guessing these videos that you're creating, they don't really have the option to click off?
Some of it, no. Like a lot of internal communications, obviously. I don't know in terms of in the companies how required they are to watch some of this stuff, but we do have to consider it, especially because a lot of it does end up on like LinkedIn or YouTube or Instagram or wherever that company is sort of basing their social media side of stuff, external social media. But yeah, you're right. Like you need to keep it engaging, keep it fresh. I like to sort of generally at the halfway point, we'll sort of put a really good shot with some music or something interesting. I've been experimenting at the moment with a bit more sound. I've sort of been bringing sound design in for the last 2 years a bit more. When I first started, we basically didn't bother with it at all. And I've sort of had fun with like, my end. And normally I would maybe go to, say we're talking about trucks, go to like a drone shot of a truck driving or like a on-road shot with a bit of sound design. But I've recently done things like, now this is where instead of having a shot of a guy walking towards the truck and hopping in and starting the truck at the beginning of the video, which it feels like the sort of common thing you do, I might chuck it in the middle with this all sound design sort of thing and just sort of make it a bit sort of gruffer and tougher for that sort of style video before getting back into talking. Sort of like trying to make that maybe that midpoint to 75% of the way through unexpected in a sense. They're like, oh, cool. Oh, this is interesting. In terms of like cutting a video down from 2 minutes down to 2 minutes to 1:30, you just have to be okay with sometimes leaving information out. And sometimes it's heartbreaking. There might be like a section that you really, really love and you've moved it around different places in the video. You've tried cutting it down as much as you can or like, blend it in with another topic. But sometimes it just has to go and the video benefits as a whole. There is a funny kind of part of this work where we almost make marketing decisions for companies when we're editing. They have all these topics that we'll talk about and like can't fit it all. From the outside perspective, I don't think this particular topic I want to talk about is very effective. So sometimes we have a discussion with the client. Sometimes I just cut it out and see what they say. Sometimes they come back and be like, oh, we're happy for it to be longer. and to put this video in, but sometimes I just don't mention it at all. And I think you can be a little brazen with that at times. Like if you really think your video is better by not mentioning this stuff while also hitting sort of what the client needs, try cutting it out or try shrinking it, or sometimes it also is just sort of merging in with another topic, which is where sort of you have to get good at cutting sentences together and
Frankenbiting.
Yeah. And sometimes that can be really effective as well in terms of, these two topics are kind of close. So if they are kind of close, maybe there's a way you can just put them together and maybe they're paragraph. Paragraph is 30% longer than what it was before, but it sort of hits everything together. So yeah, I think you can be a bit brazen with your editing at times. Don't be afraid to remove things that you think are maybe not necessarily helping the video ultimately to make a more concise and interesting video than one that's just purely informative and is a result a bit boring. So
do you find that your clients see you guys as the experts and then they trust you making those judgment calls?
Within reason, yeah. So they do allow us a bit of freedom in that sense. Some of our clients have especially been working with us for a while, give us sometimes pretty bare-bone briefs, just like this is what we're shooting, this is what it's for, and then we sort of put it together. And then obviously there'll be a bit of back and forth after that to refine that touch. But they do often rely on our expertise to tell them whether or not we think that's actually an important thing at the time. Obviously that can change depending on like what their targets really are. Maybe they really do need to mention that, and that's fine. But yeah, they do sort of allow us quite a bit of freedom. Obviously, sometimes you have clients that don't, and that's with it. That's their right as the paying client. Sometimes it can get a little frustrating that you get feedback through, and you're just like,
they are so wrong.
What are we doing here? Like this is silly. But Lyft's sort of motto, I guess, in a sense, is it's not the customer's always right, but at the end of the day, it's their video. And so we do what we can to provide them with what they want without generally too much argument. Or like we might say, I don't know, that's like maybe we might offer another alternative that's kind of helping meet their requirements. But if they really are like, no, this is what we want, then fine. Yeah, we'll do that. No problem. And we'll do what we can to the best of our ability and make it as good as it can be with that, even if we disagree sort of with it.
Yeah, I'm very similar with that as well. And looking forward into the future, Jock, where do you see your career going?
Well, at this moment, forever working at Lyft, never leaving Lyft. I love Lyft. No. At this point in my life, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at currently. Like I know that, in terms of career growth, maybe moving into more of the creative directing side, I suppose, maybe down the line. But I really enjoy getting out with the camera and filming. I'd hate to end up being mostly in an office, 90% of the time. So currently right now I'm happy at Lyft. I'm shooting and getting around and enjoying, but there is a part of me that was the filmmaker throughout uni, and I would love to find a way to integrate creative filmmaking more into what I do. I don't know if that just means doing fun little short films that aren't meant to make any money. They're just purely a passion project. Or if that means there's a way eventually down the line to sort of meld the two sort of interests together. We did recently do, I don't know if I can talk about this because it's not out yet, but a video at Lyft, through Lyft, there was more of an advert. There was sort of, the client talked to us about being a TVC ad. It wasn't for TVC, it was for online, but they wanted that sort of style. And as a result, I sort of pivoted into directing, and I got on one of my DP friends from uni to come help. And he's the cinematographer for it. We had a gaffer on set. We did the full shebang. And on set, I essentially directed the production, which was a lot of fun. And, if Lyft can do more of that down the line, that'd be great. But I don't think that's really on the cards currently. But yeah, so I think somewhere down the line, I'd love to reintegrate sort of more creative filmmaking into my life. But right now, I'm pretty happy with sort of the videography sort of stuff that I do. And I do freelance video, some weddings and stuff here and there, which I find I get a lot of enjoyment out of, and I do a lot of photography as well, same like event photography, but I also do like, just for my own interest, a bit of art, I guess, landscape, wildlife, all that sort of stuff.
Creative outlet.
Yeah, I'm often out taking photos of random stuff. So
And maybe you'll start a YouTube channel as well to be able to have that other creative outlet.
maybe that would be the way to do it. Yeah, my uni mates were, at one point they had like a monthly film. Actually, I think they turned it to bi-monthly, not comp, but it was like they called it Untitled Movie Project. And the concept was, there was a prompt, that's the one I was looking for, and you could make whatever you wanted kind of based around that prompt. And then by month they would come together and they'd screen it down at South Wharf on like a projector and sort of just talk about their creative process. And that was a lot of fun. And I'd love, maybe that's what it's got to be, just like something, got to have a deadline with a lot of creative things. And maybe it's just like a low pressure excuse to sort of experiment and maybe get to use the equipment I have in more interesting ways, like really light something, really shoot at the highest bit rate and whatnot possible to create the prettiest thing I possibly can, while also doing the sort of more corporate-y sort of style video.
Yeah, great. And to finish off today's episode, Jock, have you got any words of wisdom for our audience?
The biggest thing in filmmaking, videography, photography, and it may be not what a lot of people want to hear, I guess, is, but you need to be passionate. Like you really do need to enjoy meeting people, interacting with new people, seeing new things, and using a camera or just being involved in the video process, because there's a lot of tedium involved. And the reward from that is generally a video you've created. And so you've got to be really passionate about that side of the production. If you're not, then you are going to struggle. You're probably going to end up really tired. And I think that's kind of my biggest takeaway throughout my career. I sort of shifted passions a little bit throughout it. I started off as an actor and realized I liked filmmaking, but didn't like acting. I moved into writing, directing. I still like writing, directing, but had to realize that there's also a pragmatic side of it. So I still have passion in corporate filmmaking as much as I do in writing, creative directing and whatnot. So I think, just whatever it is that you want to do, be passionate about it, and that can carry you a long way. And so your passion will bleed into your work, no matter what it is. So
great. Well, thank you, Jock, for joining us on the Your Story Studios podcast today.
Thank you. It's been good fun.